Welcome back to the PC Engine Files. I'm your host, Mr. MegaManFan, and this is Batman for PC Engine, released in 1990 by Sunsoft, released only in Japan. And that's just one of many weird things about this game. I debated long and hard before deciding to include this one on the PC Engine Files because I have very fond memories of side scrolling, platforming, action style Batman games, and they were also developed by Sunsoft. My particular favorite was on the original Game Boy, DMG 01 as we know it, and I had a copy of that game as a kid before it got stolen and played it to death and can probably still hum the melodies of that game just at will anytime because I burned them into my brain. So that is the kind of Batman experience I came to expect. Now, truthfully, this one is a little more faithful to the Batman mythos because you're stunning your enemies with a batarang and then knocking them out. Whereas in the Batman game that I played on Game Boy and in several of the other games, Batman is decidedly more lethal with his weapons. So, if you want to understand Batman from the perspective of he doesn't kill, sure, that's what the comic books portrayed him as. If somebody died, it was not because he intentionally killed them, but because they made a mistake trying to escape from him or were so treacherous and duplicitous they brought about their own ends. Even though Batman would have willingly saved them, they pretty much sacrificed themselves rather than be brought to justice. So, I expected something along the lines of the Game Boy game the first time I played this, or at least the NES or Genesis games, and instead, it's like Batman meets Boxel, Bomberman, some sort of maze game, maybe even Pac-Man. I mean, okay. What we have here is a top-down, semi three-dimensional perspective, but really the walls are just made to look like they're at an angle, but everything is flat. That's not a problem. I don't mind that. It's actually kind of Pac-Mania-esque in that respect, although Pac-Mania had more of a tilted angle closer to an isometric perspective. But I don't mind that part. What I'm not so fond of with this Batman game is the fact that there are single paths to move on that are only one space wide in terms of the size of your character, your Batman protagonist, Bruce Wayne, if you will. And games like that, I mean, if it's a Hyankyo Alien type game where you're digging holes to trap enemies and then burying them in the holes and scoring points based on that, I mean, I get it. You would want everything to move along one straight line forward or back. And that's where it also compares to Bomberman because it's the same idea. When you're setting bombs to blow up enemies, you want them to only be on one line. You don't want them to evade. You want them moving either horizontally or vertically. It has to be restrictive for both you and the enemy. But restrictive is definitely the word that comes to mind with this Batman game because when you can only move along the set paths and the enemies can only move along the set paths and all you're doing is going around picking up items until the level ends, it feels very forced and very restrictive, and it doesn't allow for a lot of freedom or innovation in the way that you play the game. That's the thing that made platformers like Mario Brothers so much fun because there was an infinite number of ways you could solve it. If you're a speedrunner, there's only one or two ways to solve it. But if you're just playing for the fun of it, you can choose to hit a power block or not. You can choose to jump on an enemy or not. You can choose to go over or under. You can go any which way you want to get to your goal. There's no freedom of that in Batman for PC Engine. You have to follow the path, you have to pick up the items, And sometimes you have to pick up just the right item to unlock the next room that the path will lead you to. It's all very scripted and constrictive. And the only real differences you'll find are that the green colored enemies will charge at you when you come into their line of vision. So you have to be prepared to hit them with a batarang really fast compared to the other henchmen that are in the level. Other than that, there's no variation. Just rinse, lather, repeat. In fact, the names of the levels don't even change from one maze to the next. It's like Gotham City Stage 2, Gotham City Stage 3, Gotham City Stage 5. I mean, it's mind-numbing. And there's been some speculation over the years as, well, why didn't they release this on TurboGrafx? Because it was such a big franchise at the time. The Tim Burton movie was huge. Everybody remembers Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. It was a big hit. It was huge at the box office. I went and saw it as a kid. I remember how big it was. So you would think that taking that license, which this game, in fact, it is directly licensed from the movie, they would want to capitalize on that in one of the biggest markets for the movie. They never did. Maybe there was some sort of contractual problem with the movie rights. Maybe it was the fact there were already successful games released on Nintendo products and the TurboGrafx didn't really have a good market foothold compared to that. Maybe it was some combination of the two. Maybe there was North American exclusive licensing movie rights that went to Nintendo that didn't allow something on a similar platform, even though Batman games came to Sega Genesis, so I can't really think that was the reason. I think the reason was they just realized it wasn't that much fun. They slapped a Batman license on something and sold it in Japan, and then were like, yeah, gamers aren't going to go for this in the West because they're already used to a side-scrolling Batman game, and this is a maze game, and it's just not going to culturally cross the gap or sell that many units. So they didn't try. And to me, I think they made the right decision. This would not have been viewed well if it came out in North America back then. Now, with all that said, is this a terrible game? No. It's playable. The music's good. If you like maze games, it's fine. I guess I would say, if it wasn't called Batman, I'd probably like it a lot more. But when you call something Batman, you raise the expectations. It's the same problem you have if you make a Spider-Man game or an Incredible Hulk game. You're going to have to give people what they expect from that. If it's a Spider-Man game, you've got to be slinging webs and weaving your way through buildings. If it's an Incredible Hulk building, you've got to be super strong and smash your way through things. In a Batman game, you should be stealthy and action-packed, and this game is not that.